$150 an acre. That's the price of private land in a US county right now in 2026. Not at a tax auction, not a typo. $150. I know that sounds insane. It's not. Land Search has documented parcels in at least 6 counties across 6 different states where the price per acre drops below what most Americans spend on a single car payment. But here's the thing nobody's telling you. These pockets are shrinking. Every year, fewer listings hit these numbers, and the people already buying? They're not waiting for you to catch up. This isn't about county-wide averages. No county in America has a median land price below $500 per acre anymore. That era ended years ago. What still exists are specific parcels in specific townships, buried inside counties where the overall median is 2, 3, sometimes 4 times higher. You won't find them scrolling Zillow on your lunch break. You'll find them cross-referencing Land Search investor data with Land.com market reports, and then confirming that the parcel is actually private land. Because in some of these counties, most of the map belongs to the federal government or sovereign tribal nations. Locals in these areas have known about these prices for decades. Outsiders almost never do. And the window is documented as closing. Active buyers in these markets are already saying these prices won't last. So let's go through the 6 counties where sub $500 an acre land still exists, starting with the one nobody expects. The first thing you need to understand about Aroostook County is its size. This single county is larger than Connecticut and Rhode Island combined. 6,800 square miles of timber, farmland and boreal forest sitting at the very top of Maine, pressed against the Canadian border on 3 sides. People in Maine don't even call it by its name. They just say, the county. That's how dominant it is on the map and how invisible it is in national conversation. And yet it's the only county east of the Mississippi River where you can still find land priced under $500 per acre. Land Search documents parcels in remote northeastern towns: Van Buren, Connor Township, Castle Hill, Amity, Dyer Brook, Linnaeus, at $400 to $700 per acre, with the low end clearly sitting below that $500 threshold. In a nation where an acre of rural land in the eastern United States almost always carries a 4-figure price tag, Aroostook breaks the pattern entirely. The reason is 60 years of uninterrupted decline. Aroostook's population peaked at 106,064 in the 1960 census. Today, roughly 67,000 people remain. That's a 37% drop, not from a single disaster, not from a factory closure, but from a slow generational drain that has never reversed. Young people leave, timber jobs mechanize, potato farming consolidates, and every decade, the census confirms another downward step. The county doesn't collapse, it just quietly empties, the way a room cools after you turn off the heat. Now here's the honest part. The winters in Aroostook County are brutal, in a way that most Americans cannot fully comprehend. This is the northernmost county in the eastern United States. January temperatures average in the single digits. Snowfall can exceed 100 inches. The nearest city of any real size, Bangor, is a 3-hour drive south, and even Bangor only has about 32,000 people. If you're coming from anywhere with a mild climate, the adjustment isn't just physical, it's psychological. The darkness comes early in winter, and it stays. But what you get in return is something almost extinct east of the Mississippi: acreage at a price that doesn't require a mortgage. $400 an acre, documented on Land Search from active listing data. That's not a rounding error. That's a real number attached to a real parcel in a county larger than 3 US states. And every year, that population keeps sliding, those parcels get quieter, and the sellers get a little more motivated. The question is whether that window stays open, or whether remote work migration eventually finds its way this far north. Because once it does, $400 an acre will be a memory. But Aroostook, for all its size and silence, is still connected to the eastern grid: roads, power, some broadband. The next county on this list doesn't even have a hospital. Christmas Valley, Oregon, was supposed to be a resort. In the 1960s, developers platted thousands of lots in the high desert east of the Cascades, marketed them as vacation property, printed brochures showing a future that included golf courses and lakeside living. The development failed completely. The resort never materialised. The golf course never broke ground. And those thousands of platted lots? They're still there, still trading, still carrying price tags that feel like clerical errors. LandSearch documents land around Christmas Valley, as well as the tiny communities of Adel and Plush, at $250 to $700 per acre. Land.com confirms the county-wide undeveloped median sits around $1,000 to $1,167 per acre, which means these sub-500 parcels are not the norm. They're the cheap tail of a county that is itself one of the cheapest in Oregon. You're buying the outlier within the outlier. Lake County covers nearly 8,300 square miles. 8,200 people live there. That math gives you roughly one person per square mile, which is the kind of density number you'd expect from the Arctic, not the lower 48. The nearest traffic light is in another county. The nearest hospital is in another county. Let me say that again. There is no hospital in the entire county. If you have a medical emergency in Adel or Plush, you are looking at a drive measured in hours, not minutes. The landscape is high desert mixed with alkaline lake beds and rimrock. It's stark. It's enormous. It has a kind of silence that city people find eerie for the first 2 days, and then either fall in love with or flee from. There is no in-between reaction to Lake County. The elevation around Christmas Valley sits close to 4,300 feet, and the air is dry enough to crack your skin in winter. Summer days are hot. Winter nights are genuinely dangerous if you're unprepared. And yet, $250 an acre, according to LandSearch listing data, for raw, platted land in a failed resort subdivision that has spent 60 years slowly being reclaimed by the desert. You could buy 10 acres for the price of a used couch. I get it, that sounds like a scam. It's not. It's the logical endpoint of a market where supply was massively overbuilt for a demand that never arrived. The lots exist because a developer's fantasy collapsed, and nobody ever cleaned up the inventory. The people who live in Lake County are not waiting for you to discover it. They've been here. They know the trade-offs. They chose this. But what they didn't choose is the next county on this list, a place where the land market itself is split by sovereignty. Here's something most land buyers never think about. Not all land on the map is for sale. In Apache County, Arizona, a significant portion of the county is Navajo Nation land. It is sovereign territory. It is not on the market. It will never be on the market. And if you look at a standard real estate map of Apache County, you'll see listings clustered in strange corridors that seem to make no geographic sense until you overlay the tribal boundaries. Then everything clicks. The private, non-tribal land in Apache County exists in a specific corridor that most outsiders don't even know is there. And within that corridor, LandSearch documents parcels at $400 to $1,000 per acre in remote desert and high desert zones. Land.com puts the county median at $1,538 per acre, which means the sub-500 deals are the absolute floor of the market. Parcels that sit at the low tail of an already cheap county. Apache County has roughly 66,000 residents spread across over 11,000 square miles. The terrain ranges from red desert at lower elevations to pine forest and mesas above 7,000 feet. It is visually some of the most dramatic landscape in the American West. Painted desert bands, petrified wood fields, canyon walls that shift colour with the sun. But dramatic scenery does not translate into economic opportunity. The county's poverty rate remains among the highest in Arizona. Services are thin. Infrastructure in the non-tribal corridor is minimal. And here's what that price actually costs you. You can find $400 per acre here, according to LandSearch data. But you're buying into a region where the nearest full-service grocery store might be an hour's drive, where cell coverage outside the towns is intermittent at best, where the summer heat in the lower desert zones can break 110 degrees, and where winter at the higher elevations brings genuine snow and freezing temperatures. The land is cheap because the land demands something from you in return. The sovereignty split also means that navigating the purchase requires more diligence than usual. You need to confirm, absolutely confirm, that the parcel you're looking at is private, fee-simple land, not allotment land, not tribal trust land, not land with unresolved title issues. This is a county where due diligence isn't optional, it's survival. Ask any local real estate attorney and they'll tell you the same. The cheap land is real, but so are the complications. Still, $400 an acre in Arizona, in a state where Phoenix lots sell for six figures. The contrast alone tells you something about how unevenly America's land market distributes value. And if Apache County's split sovereignty seems complex, wait until you see what far west Texas does with total isolation. 2,200 people. That's the entire population of Culberson County, Texas. The whole county. To put that in perspective, a single mid-rise apartment building in Houston holds more residents than this county. Culberson sits in the far west Texas desert, anchored by the small town of Van Horn, and it is one of the least populated counties in the entire state. The landscape is Chihuahuan desert, open, dry, and enormous. But here's what surprises people. The elevation sits above 4,000 feet, which means temperatures are significantly cooler than the Texas stereotype. Winter nights regularly drop below freezing. This is not the sweltering Gulf Coast. This is high desert with genuine cold. Land Search investor data from 2025 and 2026 documents 10 to 20 acre tracts in the $400 to $600 per acre range near Van Horn and toward nearby Sierra Blanca. That puts a 20-acre parcel in the ballpark of $8,000 to $12,000 total, less than a used pickup truck. And the land is real, it's private, and it's flat enough to walk on without worrying about canyon drops or volcanic rubble. But the price is the price of total isolation, and I want to be direct about that. Culberson County has no hospital. Large swathes of the county have no cell phone service. The nearest major city, El Paso, is roughly 2 hours west on Interstate 10, and once you leave that highway corridor, you're in terrain where another human being might not pass for days. This isn't romantic solitude. This is the kind of emptiness that requires planning. You carry extra water, you carry extra fuel, you tell someone where you're going. Land Search groups this stretch of far west Texas as one of the last consistent sub-$500 an acre markets in the state. Investors have been buying these parcels for years, some for speculation, some for off-grid projects, some simply to own a piece of the American West at a price that doesn't require financing. The land doesn't have utilities, it doesn't have fences, it has horizon lines and silence, and the kind of night sky that reminds you what stars actually look like when there's no light pollution within 50 miles. If you're thinking this sounds like a place you'd visit, not live, you're probably right for most people. But there's a growing contingent of buyers who don't want neighbours, don't want HOAs, don't want building inspectors showing up to measure their setbacks, and Culberson County obliges. The county's zoning situation is essentially non-existent in the unincorporated desert. What you build is between you and the wind. And yeah, I'd be lying if I said that didn't sound a little appealing. $400 an acre in Texas in 2026, from Land Search's documented investor listings. That's the floor of the American land market. And the next entry on this list drops even lower. $150 per acre. Let that register. In a country where the average price of rural land has been climbing relentlessly for 20 years, Land Search explicitly states that in the Grouse Creek area of Box Elder County, Utah, you can sometimes find parcels as low as $150 per acre. That might be the cheapest named, documented price for private land anywhere in the United States in 2026. I know it seems like a misprint. It isn't. That's a verified figure from Land Search's own analysis of the area. And here's the historical irony that makes it sting. Box Elder County is where the Transcontinental Railroad was completed. On May 10, 1869, at Promontory Summit, the Golden Spike was driven into the final tie, connecting the Central Pacific and Union Pacific Railroads and physically unifying the American continent for the first time. It was the most celebrated infrastructure achievement in American history. Newspapers across the world covered it. Telegraph machines tapped out the news simultaneously to both coasts. Box Elder County was, for one shining moment, the center of the civilized world's attention. Now, in the same county where that spike was driven, you can buy land for $150 an acre because nobody wants to live there. The Grouse Creek area sits in the extreme northwest corner of the county, essentially a different world from the populated eastern half near Brigham City, where most of the county's roughly 64,100 residents actually live. Grouse Creek is rangeland. It's open, treeless, high desert basin country surrounded by low mountains, and it is connected to the rest of civilization by a single 2-lane road that doesn't get priority ploughing in winter. When the snow comes, Grouse Creek can be genuinely cut off. The drawback is distance, not just from cities, but from services, from community, from the basic infrastructure that most Americans take for granted. The nearest hospital is in Brigham City, which is roughly 90 miles away over that 2-lane road. There is no gas station in Grouse Creek, no grocery store. The school, if it's still operating, serves a handful of children. This is not off-grid adjacent, this is off-grid actual. You are buying rangeland at rangeland prices, and rangeland prices are low because rangeland demands that you supply everything yourself. But the number is the number. $150 an acre, documented by Land Search, in a county with legitimate historical significance, in a state, Utah, that most people associate with expensive ski towns and Salt Lake City's booming tech corridor. The contrast between what Utah is becoming and what Grouse Creek has always been is almost disorienting. Park City lots sell for millions, Silicon Slopes office space leases at premium rates, and 90 miles from the nearest hospital, in the same state, you can buy an acre for less than the price of dinner for two in downtown Salt Lake. The people who live around Grouse Creek are ranchers. They've been there for generations. Ask any of them about land prices and they'll shrug. To them, $150 an acre isn't a deal. It's just what rangeland costs when there's no water, no power, and no reason for anyone to bid it up. They're not selling out of desperation. They're selling because the land is infinite and the demand is not. But none of the above compares to what's happening in the final county on this list, because this one comes with a timestamp. An active buyer on record in 2026 stating that prices like these are disappearing. Everything we've discussed so far, every price, every parcel, every remote township, leads to this. Elko County, Nevada, is where the scarcity thesis of this entire video gets confirmed not by editorial analysis, not by listing averages, but by a real investor who put their assessment on the record. In 2026, an investor documenting a 40-acre parcel at approximately $500 per acre stated plainly, "Rare to find land this cheap anymore." That single sentence validates everything. The sub-500 window isn't just narrow. Someone actively spending money in this market is telling you it's closing. Elko County is massive, over 17,000 square miles, the fourth largest county in the contiguous United States. The landscape is basin and range geography, broad valleys of sagebrush and alkali flats separated by parallel mountain ranges that run north-south like ribs on a washboard. The county seat, Elko, has a population sitting close to 55,000 for the whole county, and most of those residents cluster in or near the city of Elko itself, along the Interstate 80 corridor. Once you leave that corridor, the county opens into something that feels more like Mongolia than America. Treeless basins stretching toward mountain ranges that seem to never get closer, no matter how long you drive. Typical rural Elko listings run between $800 and $2,000 per acre, according to Land.com and Land Search market data. That means the $500 parcel documented by the investor is not the norm, it's an outlier, a remnant. The kind of deal that used to be common 5 years ago and is now becoming the exception. And the investor's own language, rare to find, tells you exactly where the trend line is pointing. This is not a market that's getting cheaper. This is a market that's leaving $500 per acre behind. The catch with rural Elko County is remoteness compounded by aridity. Annual rainfall in the basin floors can fall below 8 inches. Water rights are a genuine legal and practical concern. In Nevada, water is not something you simply drill for and hope to find. It's allocated, adjudicated, and fought over. Buying 40 acres at $500 per acre is straightforward. Securing water for those 40 acres is a different challenge entirely, and it's the challenge that has kept these prices from climbing the way they have in states where rain falls more generously. But here's what makes Elko County the right place to end this list. It's the only entry where we have an on-record human being, not an algorithm, not a listing average, not an editorial estimate, confirming that sub-$500 land is becoming genuinely scarce. That investor isn't speculating. They bought the parcel, they paid the money, and then they looked around and said, effectively, this is the end of an era. Nevada, as a state, is booming in certain corridors. Reno has transformed. Las Vegas sprawl pushes further into the desert every year. The Gigafactory and data center investments along the I-80 corridor have brought new money and new attention to northern Nevada. Elko County sits downstream from all of that growth, not directly in the blast zone, but close enough to feel the pressure wave. And when that wave reaches the remote basins where 40-acre parcels still trade at $500 an acre, those prices will adjust. They always do. You're thinking, okay, but it's Nevada desert. What am I actually going to do with 40 acres of sagebrush? And that's a fair question. The answer depends on what you value. If you value proximity to coffee shops and fiber internet, this isn't for you. But if you value owning a piece of actual land, not a condo association's notion of ownership, not an HOA's permission slip, but fee simple dirt that belongs to you and requires no monthly payment to anyone, then $500 per acre for 40 acres in a state with no income tax is not a bad deal. It's not even a weird deal. It's the same deal that built the homesteading West. The only difference is that in 2026, you have to know exactly where to look, because the map is getting smaller every year. Not impossible, not yet, but someone who actually spent the money is telling you the math is changing. And when the people writing the checks start using the word rare, that's not a forecast. That's a field report. Every price in this video came from a named source. Every county is real. Every drawback is documented. None of this is theory. It's inventory, sitting on listing platforms right now, priced at numbers that most people refuse to believe until they check for themselves. The question you have to answer isn't where, it's when. Which county would you actually put money on, and how long do you think those numbers hold? Drop it in the comments, and if this saves you 40 hours of scrolling through overpriced listings, subscribe. We're already pulling data on the next batch.